Welcome in, Eagles fans, to the betPARX Casino pregame show brought to you by the wonderful people at Lehocky. Marc Farzetta joining you along with Eagles Hall of Famer Seth Joyner and veteran Eagles reporter Derrick Gunn ahead of a Monday night matchup. Philadelphia Eagles have their actual home opener tonight in South Philadelphia, and it looked like everybody was raring to go in the very early goings of this one. People have been tailgating since 5 o'clock. They're roasting pigs down there. One guy's even roasting an alligator. To think the Eagles fans haven't been chomping at the bit for this game in South Philly tonight, you would be greatly mistaken. A heck of an opener as well from Jason Kelce back in South Philly. We know he'll be in the broadcast booth tonight also. But I know I'm excited for this game. I know you guys are ready to go as well. The number one thing you have to talk about in a game like this is A.J. Brown, a guy that had 119 receiving yards just last week, caught 5 passes, but was targeted 10 times in that win over the Packers to open up the season. Seth, I'm going to start with you. When you talk about A.J. Brown not being there for Jalen Hurts, how much will he be missed tonight?
Listen, it's a big loss. There's no doubt about it. But I think at the end of the day, this is a great opportunity for Jalen Hurts to realize the other talent that he has around him. Now, Devontae Smith is still going to be a big part of everything that they do tonight, especially with A.J. being out. I think his targets will go up tremendously. But you got Jahan Dotson, who Nick Sirianni earlier talked about, hey, this was the reason why we went and got this guy. Just in case one of our number ones go down, we've got a guy that can replace him. And I will continue to harp on this. I believe that Dallas Goedert is a superstar in waiting. And tonight's the night where Jalen Hurts and Kellen Moore both realize that they've got something real special in tight end with Dallas Goedert, and they've got to implement him. He's got to play a big, big role in this game tonight. And, of course, Saquon Barkley coming out of the backfield.
Yeah, it wouldn't be bad to have that again.
Yeah.
Gunner, same question. How much are the Eagles going to miss A.J. Brown tonight? And also, is this hamstring injury anything that should be concerning going forward?
Well, anytime you have a hamstring injury, you have to be concerned because it's like a sprained ankle. When it feels good, you go out there and test it. All of a sudden, you retweak it, and you make it worse than what it was initially. So he's got to be careful about that. They're going to miss him tremendously because he makes the catalyst go on this offense. He is the catalyst of that offense in a lot of ways. I expect the Atlanta Falcons to roll their coverage towards Devontae Smith. I don't think they're going to let Devontae Smith beat him tonight, which means Jahan Dotson, Barkley, Dallas Goedert, as Seth was talking about, somebody has to step up and shine tonight in this offense. You don't let a receiver the caliber of a Devontae Smith beat you in any situation. You talked about the targets he had last week. I would imagine he'd have that and then some this week. He's got to be Jalen's go-to guy. But if Atlanta takes that away, somebody else has to step up and assert themselves.
I do want to mention, Seth, you mentioned Saquon Barkley. Don't forget our friends here at the betPARX Casino, betPARX app. You guys can right now take advantage of number 26 himself, teeing off tonight against the Falcons. You could win yourself some money. There's an odds boost tonight, plus 150 for Saquon Barkley. Terms and conditions apply at Bet Casino. That's betPARX.com. Must be 21 and in Pennsylvania. There's an odds boost tonight for Saquon Barkley, over 100 yards, going off at plus 150. So make sure you check that out. We talk about other guys potentially stepping up for this Eagles team. Johnny Wilson's a guy that's questionable going into tonight's game, a rookie that was praised by Kellen Moore after Week 1 against the Packers for not just obviously catching ability, which we did not get to see in Week 1, but blocking ability. I usually hate when wide receivers are praised for blocking ability, but when it's a rookie,
not me.
Why? Because it's not the headline. It's not the headline. But for a rookie, I praise it.
It's such an integral part. All you got to do is look at the dismantling of the Dallas Cowboys by the New Orleans Saints, who the Eagles face next week. Their wide receivers blocked. They got in 2 tight end sets that allowed them to get to the edge of that defense, that forced some different things. Listen, you got to have wide receivers that like to block, that's not just locked in on, I got to catch balls, I got to catch balls, I got to catch balls. The running game goes because you have good blocking wide receivers. A lot of times, those big pops that you make are a result. Now, we don't see that. We don't even look at that. We see what the offensive line is doing. We see what the running back is doing. But it cannot be underscored how important, D-Gun, the blocking is by the wide receivers. That's the crucial play. You don't get 20, 30, 40-yard runs without wide receivers blocking safeties down the field.
It is a thankless yet necessary job in the National Football League as we know it today. Some receivers obviously do it better than others. There was a time when it was talked about how receivers always were on the receiving end of taking a beating when it came to blocking and running situations. Now you look at the physicality of a lot of these receivers out there now. You look at the size of them. They're bigger than the guys who are covering them, and they're implementing the punishment more so than taking it, and forcing a lot of DBs in a lot of ways to back off in running play situations. So, when you have a receiver that enjoys doing it, especially a young guy like Johnny Wilson, who's just trying to make the team and stay a part of their 53-man roster, you do whatever you can, whatever the coaches tell you. If he tells you to run through that brick wall, you run through that wall.
There's a lot of one of the biggest talking points really throughout this week was talking about Jalen Hurts' interceptions. True, you celebrate the victory, but you also try to correct the mistakes. And one of the things that was haunting a lot of Eagles fans throughout the preseason and throughout the offseason was whether or not Jalen Hurts was going to be able to get rid of the turnovers and get rid of the bad decisions. This week, Kellen Moore referred to them as outliers. Don't necessarily agree with that when you have 15 of them the previous season. And then Jalen Hurts himself called them unwise decisions. Seth, are you concerned that Jalen Hurts hasn't left the turnovers in 2023 and that he's brought them back into 2024?
No, because a lot of quarterbacks would have sat at that podium and came up with every excuse for why they threw that interception. When he said they were unwise decisions, that told me that there's a level of self-awareness and accountability with Jalen Hurts that we haven't seen with a lot of quarterbacks in the National Football League. It's always, the offensive line, the protection broke down or the receiver ran the wrong route. He took responsibility because he knew that they were bad throws, that they were bad decisions. They were unwise decisions in his own words. I think when he becomes a little more self-aware about that, that those things are fixable. And then at the other end of the spectrum, I kind of talked about it in our postgame last week, how Kellen Moore can do a better job of putting him in better situations in third and long situations where it seems like he's more apt to make these unwise decisions than any other time. And Kellen actually addressed that. He actually said that. He said, hey, we could make a better call in that situation. 3rd and 15 is really, really difficult, almost darn near impossible to convert. So why are you going to drop your quarterback back? And I'm not defending Jalen in the least little bit. I'm just speaking facts here. Why would you put him in a situation with all goals in that 3rd and 15, knowing that he's going to try to complete that ball? Okay, you know that the probabilities are probably under 10% that you're going to convert that third down. Call a screen, call a draw, get off the field, punt the ball, take those unwise decisions out of his purview when you know that you can. And just realize that sometimes the defense wins, and sometimes you got to punt and you got to rely on your defense. That's just the facts.
We talked about this a little bit before the show, Gunnar, when you talk about Jalen Hurts. Yeah, the stat sheet says 2 interceptions. But when you talk about maybe unwise decisions, there could have been 2 others in that game against the Packers that he'd like to have back as well.
There's no question about it. And I want to watch tonight if he truly tries not to play hero ball. Okay, I thought he tried to play a little hero ball. We talked about this, and I knew coming out of this game, he had 278 yards passing, he had 2 touchdowns, but you knew everybody in every media outlet and all the fans wanted to talk about the mistakes he made and how it could have cost him the game. Now, he spent the better part of the last 9 days listening to everybody talk about, is Jalen worthy of being called a franchise quarterback making $250 million. So now he's going to go out on the biggest stage of all, Monday Night Football. All of this stuff he's a cool, calm, collected customer, and there's no question about it. But he's still a young quarterback developing. Let's call it what it is. He's not a complete product yet. So he's still learning. Will he get caught up in the moment? Will he try to do too much again in this game tonight that could get him in trouble? Because, again, this is a big litmus test for him. If you look at him, he's got 17 interceptions in his last 18 games. Okay? That says it all in a nutshell. If he goes out there and throws 2 or 3 more interceptions tonight, even if the Eagles win this game, how magnified are the mistakes going to be for the rest of this week? On a short week, by the way, leading up to that Saints game.
Absolutely. Now, when you mentioned a franchise quarterback getting paid big bucks, whether or not they're worth it, you can't help but to think about Dak Prescott and what the heck happened to the Dallas Cowboys. If the Eagles aren't going to be playing on a particular Sunday, fellas, you better watch the Dallas Cowboys be terrible at their jobs, no?
Dak got the money, and then Dak got decked by the Saints.
Listen, it was joyful to watch. That's the first thing.
I knew he was going to say that.
But let's be honest. The Dallas's defense was the cause of that beatdown yesterday.
Yes.
Now, Dak didn't have his best game. He threw a couple of interceptions, but I think by the time he began to throw those interceptions, he was in a position where he had to force some balls that he would not normally throw. He's only got really one weapon. He lost his tight end in that game yesterday. All they have is CeeDee Lamb. Everybody keeps talking about the talent that's on Dallas's team, and, they may be the only team in the NFC East that did not get better over the offseason. They didn't spend any money. The money that they did spend, they spent it on their number one, on their wide receiver and on their quarterback. But they didn't really bring in a lot of players to help make that roster better. Now, they're a talented team across the board, but they're not better than they were last year. And I expect that this game yesterday, D. Gunn, will be a blueprint for teams who have the ability to play that way, where you can go big and you've got a good offensive line that can push the middle of the field. I still don't think that Dallas is a team that you run straight at. If you look at the majority of their plays, they were off tackles.
Absolutely.
They had cut down splits, whether it was a wide receiver and two tight ends or three tight ends or whatever the situation was, but they outflanked Dallas in a lot of situations where you had man-on-man or the extra man, and you can't give Alvin Kamara that kind of room to operate. So it was a joyful day to actually sit back and watch, the Cowboys, after all the hoopla week one beating up on the Cleveland Browns, just get stomped in the mud yesterday.
Dallas is known for being a fast defense. And I was shocked at how New Orleans beat them at their own speed game. As Seth talking about how they beat them. Look at how many times. Now, Alvin Kamara is one of the best all-purpose backs in the National Football League. Look at how he beat that defense to the edge time and time again. And Mike Zimmer is a very good defensive coordinator. Made no adjustments. I'm thinking, okay, let's see what he does in the second half to make adjustments. From what we were watching, didn't make any adjustments because the Saints kept doing the same thing over and over again, and Dallas couldn't stop. They virtually scored on every possession that they had in that game.
Yeah. That's a shame. When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, we, of course, here are at PARX Casino in Ben Salem. You guys can come out, say hello, please do. If you're not down there at the game, and thank you for watching right now on the Seth Joyner YouTube channel as well as 6abc.com. When we come back, we're going to break down the interview between Jason Kelce and Jalen Hurts and one surprising statement made in that interview. We'll also talk about what is sustainable for Saquon. That's when we come back on the betPARX pregame show brought to you by Lehocky.
When you open the betPARX app, you're in the zone. Winning is always a rush, but the money is in the moments. It's the anticipation of another face card, the thrill of an extra spin, and the pure joy of a jackpot. It's all your favorite games at your fingertips. Plus, get up to $1,000 casino bonus back if you're down in the first 24 hours. You play for fun, you love to win. You bet. betPARX.
Stick to the code. I'm in my zone. Let's go. I'm back in my bag. I'm wrecking the wins and it's making them.
You've got your Sunday obsession, and we got you. Now with Verizon, get NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube TV on us and get every out-of-market Sunday game. Plus $800 off Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 6. Only on Verizon.
See you Sunday.
Most people don't know how to get the care they need. The experts at Stay at Home Care can help. Before choosing a caregiver or family member for your care, you need to apply for the Home Care Program. The application process can be complicated. Stay at Home Care can help you navigate through every step. Once approved, your caregiver or family member will receive guaranteed weekly pay, a variety of medical benefits options, paid holidays, paid vacation, and overtime pay. Call Stay at Home Care, here to help every step of the way.
This segment is brought to you by our host sponsor, PARX Casino. Make sure you check out all they have to offer at betPARX.com and the PARX Casino app as well. Welcome back to the Parx Casino pregame show brought to you by Lehocky. Marc Farzetta, Seth Joyner, and Derrick Gunn with you. There was an interview that went down between Jalen Hurts and Jason Kelce. It dropped in the wee small hours of the morning. A lot of people talking about the fact that these two former teammates said, "I love you" to one another. A lot was talked about when it came to the relationship between these two. Two things really jumped out to me, fellas, about this interview. One, that it happened, because, Seth, I know you heard a lot of the talking heads, a lot of the hot take people talk about how just 2 weeks ago, Jalen Hurts was throwing Jason Kelce under the bus for, quote, halting his production and his progression as a quarterback. I didn't take it that way. I know you didn't either, right?
Not at all. I mean, I think that for people who don't like Jalen and people who want to paint different narratives, D-Gun, it was a perfect opportunity. They said, oh, he threw the organization under the bus. He threw Jason Kelce under the bus. And it was filled with excuses for why he played the way he played last year. And I didn't hear or I didn't see it that way at all. What I saw was a young quarterback say, hey, you know, my starting center, my veteran center, who's been in the NFL for 12, 13 years, 14 years, he was given the task of calling the protections. And they told me, hey, don't worry about it as a young quarterback. We just want you to play, get acclimated to the offense, and let Jason handle that. Well, anybody that really knows football understands and knows that either the quarterback calls all the protections or he's working in concert at all times with the center. And the issue is the center got his hand down, his head down. So he can see things that's in his peripheral from down below. He can't see what the secondary and the linebackers are doing. The quarterback is the only guy between the two of them that can see it all. So when he needs to check and get out of one play and get into another, he's seeing things that maybe the center doesn't see. If he needs to get into a better pass play, D-Gun, he's seeing things that maybe the center can't or doesn't see. So he was talking about how that kind of stymied his growth. And it wasn't in a negative way,
right.
You know, and I try to tell people on social media, I'm like, you got to understand the love that's between these guys. Exactly. One, I was glad to see that Jason and his brother Travis talked about it on their podcast, New Heights. Then I was extremely happy to see that Jason and Jalen actually sat down for an interview so people could see, A, there's no bad blood, that Jason could confirm, you know, the things that Jalen was saying, and then ask him, hey, are you now in control of all the protections? Right. So people can understand where Jalen was coming from. It wasn't an excuse. It wasn't him throwing the organization or Jason under the bus. He was just saying, I wanted to continue to grow as a quarterback, and in order for me to do that, I need to be in control of protections. Had nothing to do with him sliding Jason Kelce in the leaders, D-Gun.
If I have a potential first ballot Hall of Famer in front of me, and I'm a young quarterback who's just trying to make my way in a very, very critical market, a very, very knowledgeable market, I'm going to shut up and listen. You know, that's the quickest way you learn. You know, he learned from one of the best. Jason Kelce prepared him for what's to come this season. So that when we heard that now he's making 100% of the calls, okay, it's class out. All right, it's time for the quarterback to take over the role. And he did a good job with it last week. You know, when you look at his numbers last week against the Green Bay Blitz in particular, he was 6 of 7, 91 yards and a touchdown. He had a perfect rating of 158.3. What else do you want? He learned his lesson well.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. We had never heard it acknowledged before. The way it happened in the interview was that Jason Kelce said to Jalen Hurts, nonchalantly, like it was common knowledge, so you're handling pretty much all the protections now. I mean, I thought, and we talked before the show, maybe 40, maybe 50% he's handling it. This is the first time it was acknowledged publicly, at least, that Jalen Hurts is handling this. Now, you might say, okay, well, you have essentially a rookie center. He's rookie at the position of center in the NFL in Cam Jurgens. So you're just going to trust then the quarterback with everything? I thought maybe most of it, but not all of it. And that's what came out of the interview yesterday.
I think making it public knowledge is both good and bad. And here's why. When things are going well as an offense, he's going to get a lot of accolades. Man, this young kid is highly intelligent. His football IQ is through the roof. When it goes bad, or if it goes bad, what's the first thing people are going to say? Why is he making all the calls?
Yeah, right.
You know, Kellen Moore should be doing this.
Take it off his plate.
Take it off his plate.
How
He's
about
got
Cam
enough to worry
Jurgens?
about.
How about Cam Jurgens be a center?
Yeah, well,
Read it.
and the center's supposed to be doing this. You know, but that's the nature of football. You know it's going to happen, both positive and negatively.
Well, Seth, as someone who used to try to fool the quarterback, right? You're trying to disguise blitzes and all that stuff. Jalen Hurts said it has helped him have a greater understanding of everything in motion, so that he could try to exploit what's in the secondary, try to exploit what the linebackers are doing, even the defensive line. So how much do you think it will help his progression now to be the guy kind of in charge of that?
I think it'll help him immensely. A lot will just depend upon how well he understands Kellen Moore's system. The more he understands it, the better he understands it, and the conversations that transpire and take place between Kellen Moore and Jalen Hurts on a weekly basis. Because, listen, people just don't understand what goes into it. There are certain things that the offensive coordinator and his quarterback have talked about. There are maybe 10 to 15 looks that if that quarterback gets that look, they have a plan for that look. They've got big plays or big runs that they want to check to when they get that look. Now, if you're the quarterback and you're not in control of the protections, you're not in control of what you're seeing, how do you get to those? That's my question, because the center, as smart as he may be and as veteran as he may be, like I said before, he can't see everything. So every great quarterback or every quarterback that's aspired to be great, he has to be in position where those 10 to 15 plays, those special plays, that when we get this look, we know that we can make hay here. We can make a big play here. The quarterback has got to be able to see that with his eyes, make that check with the offensive line, make that check, with his skill position players, and get the team in the right position to be able to attack and take advantage of that opportunity.
Also, on top of that, if your head coach, who is an offensive-minded coach, and your coordinator, who's considered one of the better coordinators in the National Football League, endorse a young quarterback who, again, you can't emphasize enough, still evolving, to make all the line calls, they feel obviously that he's ready to do it. If not, they would have taken it off his plate and given it to the center. So obviously they feel his progression from last year to this year, even though the season last year bottomed out the way it did, they feel that what he's done in the offseason, OTAs, minicamp, training camp, leading up to this moment, is exactly what they want from their quarterback at this point.
Well, I also think that you have to remember, too, you got Cam Jurgens. Yeah, he started at right guard all last year.
Yep.
But, and he's by nature a center. But he's moving into a new system. The protections may be the same, but it's different from him getting those protections from Jason is right to his left and him having to make those. Now, that's not to say in time that Cam won't be able to see things that potentially that Jalen won't see, and there's not some kind of mesh or some kind of coming together of the minds between the two of them that allows them to do it together. But I still think that in order for a quarterback to be at his best, to be elite, to be able to check in and out of plays, to make sure that the offense is in the right play at the right time to take advantage of every single opportunity that presents itself, that quarterback has to be in control of those protections. That's just my opinion.
Fair enough. Moving on to the Eagles' run game. When it comes to Saquon Barkley, look at the 26 touches that he had last week. He had 24 runs. He had 2 catches. He had 3 touchdowns in total. We all enjoyed the Eagles' new toy in Saquon Barkley, finally home in PA again. The question came up throughout the week, realistic expectations for his workload. I think everyone, if you asked them last year, if you had a running back like Saquon Barkley, as many times as possible. There is a thing, unfortunately, a little load management, maybe a little workload management, obviously. What is realistic when it comes to seeing Saquon Barkley play for this Eagles team all year long to keep him healthy? What's the workload really look like, D. Gunn?
Exactly what it looked like last week.
26 touches.
26 touches a game, yes. Now, you worry about him being possibly worn down come December, but that's what you brought him in for. He's a much bigger back than Swift. Obviously he can sustain it. Now, you got to worry about the injury factor as well. But when you have a back of that caliber that you can turn around and hand the ball off to or throw the ball out in the facts or in the flats or what we saw, him beat the DB on a wheel route, you got to utilize that skill. No question about it. So I expect 25. Like I said last week, I don't expect him to get 25 carries. You don't want his body banged in that regard. But you can get him out in open space, and he's shifty enough to make a lot of moves to make people miss. But you have to incorporate him as much as you can in the offense, especially with his ability to lower that shoulder and wear defenders down.
Too much? Not enough? What do you like?
I think over time, those numbers will come down. And this is why. The Eagles traditionally, you guys have heard me say this 1,000 times, traditionally with their running backs, they really don't like their running backs to touch the ball more than about 16 to 18 times a game. I think that, they've got sports science over there. They got the analytics over there. And I think between the two of them, they give the running back coach, the offensive coordinator, and the head coach their opinion that once they exceed that number, that the probability of injuries go up exponentially. Now, the game was in the balance last week. They needed Saquon in a big way, so his numbers were up. I believe that at some level, they're going to be looking to actually hand him the ball and run it 16 to 18 times. I believe that they want 3 to maybe 5 passes out of the backfield, okay? That potentially gives you right around 23 touches a game, 20 to 23 touches a game, depending on how they need him and the necessity to actually get him the ball. But I think that over time, the numbers will vary, they'll change. And you also got to take into account, the propensity for this organization and this head coach to want to pass the football. They're going to have these games where, they're not going to be 38 runs and 34 passes like last week. There are going to be some games where you've got, a 40 pass, 20 run, 22 run type game. It's inevitable because we talk about it all the time, D-Gun.
Yeah.
For years we've been doing, these pre and post games. And, you guys know the first thing I always do as I'm preparing for the game, I want to look and see where teams rank against the run, against the pass, third down efficiency, all of those, red zone, all of those things, all of those play into, my preparation. And when I look at it, it's like, okay, the Eagles are playing a team today that ranks 29th versus the run, but they rank 15th versus the pass. Oh, we should come out and run the ball today. What do? They come out and throw it all over the map, and vice versa. They do things the other way sometimes. I don't know whether it's coordinators just playing mind games because maybe the other side feels like they're going to try to take advantage of their weakness and they go in a different direction for a while. But that over time, that's what's going to happen.
But they haven't had a back like Saquon Barkley.
Exactly.
I agree. They haven't had a back of that caliber.
I agree.
You got to use the toy, man.
As great as Saquon Barkley was, and we could talk about that certainly a whole bunch, there are maybe 2 other guys that disappointed, unfortunately, in week 1. We're going to talk about that.
And before you go, they want that greatness, D-Gun, in December, January, and hopefully February.
Absolutely.
So they got to be judicious in how they deal with him through September and October and November.
Yeah, you don't want any duct tape on that toy come December. You know what I'm saying? When we come back, we're going to take a look at this Eagles defensive line, what to expect to see from them. Also, Nick Foles getting honored tonight. What do our experts have to say about the career of Nick Foles in Philadelphia? That's when we return on the betPARX pregame show from Parx Casino in Bensalem, brought to you by Pond Lehocky.
At Pond Lehocky Giordano, we understand the impact an injury can have on your life. Our experienced attorneys have recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we know we can do the same for you. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured at work, give Pond Lehocky a call.
Since 1893, Weber Display and Packaging has been Pennsylvania's leading manufacturer of corrugated packaging and displays. We're family-owned with 4 Philadelphia locations, 2 converting facilities, a warehouse, and a fulfillment center. Designed through delivery, we exceed customer needs. Weber Display and Packaging. Our core values drive everything we do. Come, join our team.
The Excite Center at Parx Casino, the region's hottest live entertainment venue. Check out your favorite concerts, comedy, boxing, MMA, all at the #1 casino in Pennsylvania. Don't miss Funny Man JB Smoove on Saturday, September 14th, plus Straight No Chaser on Friday, October 18th. Don't miss these 2 exciting headliners, only at the Excite Center inside Parx Casino. Parx Casino, this is how you win. Tickets on sale now.
At Revolution X, we know that fortunes are made in times of uncertainty. Are you selling your investment real estate? Are you interested in deferring your tax with a 1031 exchange? At RevX, we're experts in 1031 exchange planning and the use of passive real estate options using DSTs. Not in the midst of an exchange and want to invest in real estate but don't know where to start? Revolution X has institutional-grade real estate options for any size investor right now. Set up a consultation at RevXWealth.com. RevX, defer the tax, maximize the gain.
This segment is brought to you by Pond Lehocky. Welcome back to Parx Casino in Ben Salem for the betPARX pregame show. Marc Farzetta, Seth Joyner, Derrick Gunn with you. Thank you for watching on the Seth Joyner Show YouTube channel as well as 6abc.com. And also thank you to our presenting sponsor, Pond Lehocky, Seth Joyner, Derrick Gunn. When you look at the Eagles' defensive line last week, they left a lot to be desired. They were able to allow Josh Jacobs to run amok in many instances. And when Vic Fangio was asked this week about missed tackles by his secondary, he went right to the defensive line and said, well, you know what? They got to get through that D-line first before they get to missed tackles in the secondary. But the missed tackles are obviously something that we need to clean up. You could easily look at, gentlemen, Jalen Carter, and you could also look at Jordan Davis and say these guys are supposed to be now the men in the middle that are going to prevent these long runs, get pressure, make sure that the quarterback is under duress, get in that guy's face. We didn't see that a lot last week when it came to this defensive line, and they left a lot to be desired. These are two guys that both said independently, without a guy like Fletcher Cox here anymore, no one is coming to save us. It looked like, unfortunately, there were too many plays in week one where they needed someone to save them. Seth, what do you need to see from these two guys going into week two?
Well, listen, I think Jordan Davis is what he is, and I don't think we're going to see much difference in the way of pass rush, if that's what you're talking about. He needs to be more dominant. And you know, a lot of times you watch a game and you watch things happen, and really what you're watching is kind of deceiving to your eyes. It's not till you go back and you watch the All-22, you get the close-up view of the defensive line, and you see what's truly happening. Jordan Davis has to be more dominant in the run game, and he's got to develop a sense for when teams are trying to run and being able to dominate in that situation, because that's his specialty, D-Gun. Yeah. Jalen Carter was destructive last week. Even though it didn't show up in the hurry box, it didn't show up in the sacks box, you know, he was just tossing people around and destroying, you know, guards in his one-on-ones. The thing that he has to do is he's got to do it quicker. He's got to get rid of guys quicker. He uses a lot of power moves, and then, you know, he tries to get off. He's got to learn how to get off blocks right now so that he's immediately in the backfield. And he has the ability to do that. But he's so dominant, a guy will jump set him, and now he's in a wrestling match, and he'll drive for 1.5 yards, and then he gets rid of the guy. Well, it's too late now. You've got to win. As soon as the ball is snapped, you've got to dominate. You've got to go power, get rid of him, and get to the quarterback right now. So it's just him being able to speed that up and get off blocks and get there immediately. I think that, you know, it's something that they probably saw in the film last week. It's something that he should have seen in the film last week. And when I watched the Atlanta game last week, the Pittsburgh Steelers defensive line, they just destroyed. I mean, destroyed. Now, J.J. Watt and Highsmith on the other side, they're a whole nother animal. But those guys on the interior, they destroyed the Atlanta Falcons' interior defensive line. And our guys are going to have to – they're going to need a performance like that tonight.
Real quick on that note, almost 40% of the passes from Kirk Cousins last week were under pressure thanks to that Steelers pass rush.
You know, and a lot of people are saying, well, it's because the Achilles has not 100% healed. But Kirk deflected that in his sessions with the media, saying, no, the Achilles is fine. He's never been known for being a great scrambler. You know, he can tear you up. If you give him time, he'll tear you up through the air. There's no question about it. But I think this is the game where he's going to be more of a stationary target, and that the Eagles' defensive front has to get off the ball and get after him and force him to move, force him to throw the ball where he doesn't want to throw it, force him to throw the ball quicker. Kirk Cousins likes a lot of the timing routes. And if you throw him off his game, you have a really good chance of getting to him. I want to go back to what Seth was just talking about a little bit about Jalen Carter. When I look at him, he's as explosive as any young DN in the National Football League right now. In terms of straight-ahead power, outstanding straight-ahead power. I think he has to have a better array of moves to get off of some of these gargantuan offensive tackles, and even when he's swimming to the inside against some of these bigger guards. When you look at the best pass rushers in the National Football League today, T.J. Watt, he's not the biggest guy out there, but you can't stop him. Why? Because he sets you up to do what he wants to do. Even Von Miller, at his age right now, I'm watching Buffalo play. Look at how he sets people up and then makes his move. Jalen has to do a better job in terms of making an offensive lineman think one thing and then use that explosiveness to do what he wants to do.
To look at the numbers from last week against the Steelers, it did not look good at all. Now, again, just to refer to the stat sheet, you might only see 2 sacks on Kirk Cousins, but 2 interceptions, both of them coming with pressure in his face. Then you also look at the fact, again, 39.8% of the time when he was dropping back to pass, I shouldn't even say drop back, he started in the shotgun. There was no pass he threw that wasn't out of the shotgun in week 1. 38.8% of the times he was under pressure in that. And let's not forget about this also. 2 things. Of the legs, look at the numbers there. He's playing on one leg, essentially, is what it looks like in Kirk Cousins. And 3 and 10 in Monday Night Football. It is not his thing to play in Monday Night Football. The term statue has been used quite a lot when it comes to Kirk Cousins, Seth. When you know you have a quarterback that is, unfortunately for him, not really someone who is known for being able to move, but especially now after the injury, not moving well. How much does that look to you to be that piece of meat hanging in the lion's den?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, as a defensive player, you want to play against that quarterback who's going to be on his spot, not the guy that's able to manipulate the pocket. And D. Gunn talked about him not necessarily being a scrambling quarterback. He's not. He's never been. But what he used to be able to do, D. Gunn, is he used to be able to manipulate the pocket, move right, move left, feeling the blitz or feeling the pressure, stepping up in the pocket, climbing the pocket after he's taken a 7-step drop. I would contend to say that, he's saying that there's nothing wrong with the Achilles, that he's 100%.
Right.
But the fact that they put him in shotgun darn near the whole game tells me a different story. I know he would much rather be under center because he's a play-action quarterback. He would much rather be under center. And with a running back like Bijan, who got positive yards last week, they very rarely got under center. He lived in the shotgun darn near the entire game. So that tells me there's something else going on that maybe he doesn't want us to know, and they don't want everybody to know, but he can't be 100% if they just leave him in the pocket and make him a statue. Because if I'm even from a defensive coordinator's perspective, if I know that guy's there, any pressure that I bring and I scheme it the right way and I send a runner, it's a sack. It's a sack or it's a ground ball where he's just going to get rid of it and take the penalty because he's not going to take the hit. Or he makes a mistake and throws an interception. So as a defensive coordinator and as a player, there is nothing more fulfilling than knowing that quarterback's going to be right there every single time, that he doesn't have the ability or he does not want to move right or left or he does not want to climb the pocket.
Now, we always talked about Vic Fangio in the offseason, talked about quarters defense, talked about not being aggressive. I saw a pretty good defense, actually, despite the missed tackles out there in week 1, and I certainly like the philosophy. He was more aggressive than I expected. When you have a quarterback like Kirk Cousins, D. Gunn, are you expecting Vic Fangio to be sent in the house?
You got to go after him. You have to go after him. I'm not afraid of their wide receivers. I'm not afraid of Ray McLeod, Drake London, Darnell Mooney. They're good NFL wide receivers. I'm more afraid of Kyle Pitts in matchups against the linebackers, okay? You can control that a little bit better with some help over the top. And with that said, I think the Eagles' DBs are fast enough and physical enough to stay with this collection of wide receivers. So what do? Go after that quarterback. Go after this particular quarterback. You go after some quarterbacks, they'll make you pay. When you step up and blitz against them, they'll make you pay. Kirk Cousins is one of the smartest quarterbacks in the National Football League, but he's a stationary target right now. And I agree 100% with Seth. I believe that they're not telling you fully about that Achilles. I don't think it's 100% because when you talk about coming back from an injury like that, it takes you a while. Even when you come back, I've talked to so many running backs who have come from, even when they get back in the groove, it doesn't feel, I don't care how many training camps you go through, preseason games, it takes you to game speed, at least several game speeds before you feel comfortable with it mentally and physically.
Oh, certainly. It's the two versions of getting over the injury,
Absolutely.
the physical and the mental.
Absolutely.
I've heard so much about.
Well, that psychological side, the doctors can say you're healed. You can run full speed like you're healed.
Yeah.
But when you're under duress and somebody's coming at you, you don't know if I plant that foot the wrong way, what's going to happen. So there's always that apprehension until he plants it, and then somebody hits him when he plants it, and he gets up and says, oh, it's all good. Now I can get up and I can play football. Until he goes through that, he's always going to have apprehension because he remembers what that felt like to lay on the ground with that popped Achilles. He knows what it felt like to go through the surgery, the rehab, the months of rehab and trying to stretch the Achilles and get it right where he could begin to operate again. That kind of stuff never leaves your head. So that trauma, that PTSD from that injury is present in his mind until his body proves him wrong. And I'm not so sure after one game, D-Gun, that he's there psychologically.
It doesn't make a difference how long you've been in the National Football League, whether it's a year or 15 years. When you go through an Achilles injury, ACL tear, you know what? There's that psychological factor. You need that hit. So many players have told me that it takes several games before you get back to where you are, because when you take that and you start favoring things, okay? And when you favor things, is a lot of times when you get re-injured again. When you just have that natural ability, you just go. But when you've had a devastating injury like that, I don't care if the doctors have said you're 100%. Physically, you might be. Mentally, you're not, though. You're not quite there yet.
One more week, cousins. One more week, Kurt.
Yeah.
One more week. All right. We joked about this a little bit last week in the postgame show when we talked about Zach Bond. I want to make sure I mention his name here.
Yeah.
But Zach Bond last week had 15 tackles. If he has another 15 tackle night tonight, he ties his career high for a season in week 2. We talked about the usage of a guy like Saquon Barkley and the expectations there after a great debut. What do you expect to see from Zach Bond, Seth, in this game tonight?
I expect to see a lot more. I don't think people really understand how it is that a defensive coordinator can make or break a player. I can remember playing for Bud Carson, and when Bud realized that he could trust me, he began to put me in positions to make plays. That was, statistically my best career. When you look at a Brian Dawkins was doing things that your linebacker should have been doing. But Jim Johnson respected him and could trust him, and he put him in position to make plays. Brian talks about it. I was a stat stuffer, okay? So I think that Vic is in a position now. He wanted that kid. He got him. He put him in position last week to make plays. I don't see this week being any different. I really don't. You're going to see him move around when they need to get to their 5-man fronts, whether they're in man and they send 5 or whether they're in zone and they drop him off. You're going to see him break the formation and line up. If they need to drop an extra guy in the box, they'll slide N'Kobe over and drop one of the safeties in the box so you can get to your 7-man front. All of those things are there for him. And the fact that the more that you produce, the more a defensive coordinator trusts you. And I think that he's on the way to that with Vic Fangio. Last week was a giant step in that direction. I expect for each and every week to be a little bit of the same.
Looking at the same thing, D-Gun?
No question about it.
Fair enough.
When you've had an outing like that in a new scheme, when you've been considered a role player your whole career, you might have found a diamond in the rough. You know what you do? You keep polishing that diamond.
There you go.
All right, we're going to talk about when we come back, guys. We need to say maybe break out like a Zach Bond, if you could have more than one guy do that in the game. We'll see who could break out in tonight's game against the Atlanta Falcons. We'll also take a look at the career of Nick Foles and where our experts have him ranked when you talk about some of the greatest Eagles of all time, greatest performances of all time. All that when we return here on the betPARX pregame show from Parx Casino in Ben Salem, brought to you by Lehocky.
Let's go. I'm back in my bag. I'm wrecking the wins and it's making them.
You've got your Sunday obsession, and we got you. Now with Verizon, get NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube TV on us and get every out-of-market Sunday game. Plus $800 off Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 6. Only on Verizon.
See you Sunday.
And the next thing I knew, I woke up in a hospital bed.
Has a friend ever told you a story about an accident and someone says,
you should probably sue them.
Forget your friend. Call Pond Lehocky Giordano.
We're an injury law firm that's recovered billions of dollars for our clients.
And with our vast network of attorneys throughout the country, we know we can do the same for you.
So if you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
One conversation is all it takes, and you won't pay a dime until we win.
This is Seth Joyner, top analyst for the Birds. I've also analyzed the best auto dealerships, and I drive a Davis Honda.
Get to Davis Honda now and fall into savings. Lease a new 2024 Prologue EV for just $299 per month. See why Davis Honda continues to win outstanding awards for sales and service, including the highest award from Honda, the President's Award, 2 years in a row. Fall into savings right now at Davis Honda. Feel the Davis difference at Davis Honda in Burlington.
I'm Seth Joyner, and I drive a Davis Honda.
This upcoming segment is brought to you by our friends at Verizon. Welcome back to Parx Casino and Ben Salem. We're actually just down the street from where Kyle Pitts went to high school. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Archbishop Wood.
Yeah. Look at you.
Pretty good establishment.
Knowledge.
Thank you. Well, I'm just saying we're both Archbishop Wood Vikings. That's all I'm saying.
Well, you know, there's a good and a bad.
I think they would say the same. Welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you guys hit the, I think they say smash the like button on the Seth Joyner YouTube channel, Seth Joyner Show YouTube channel. And also thank you for watching on that channel as well as 6abc.com.
Hey, also hit that notification button so every time that we log on a show, you get the notification to come on board.
There you go. Make sure you smash that button too. That's all that happens on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Just smash the button. That's what happens apparently. All right, we're the Eagles are honoring Nick Foles tonight. He has officially retired as a Philadelphia Eagles at Lincoln Financial Field. He was out there at Xfinity Live partying with Jason Kelce in his nice green South Philly tuxedo, they called it before the game tonight. When you look at the career of Nick Foles, certainly one that had extreme highs and then very unfortunate lows. Gunner, you covered him for all the years here in Philadelphia. When you look back on the career of Nick Foles, what do you think about with Foles?
He was the epitome of what an exceptional backup quarterback should be in Philadelphia. He had one of the most mysterious careers to me because anywhere else he went, he floundered. In Philadelphia, he flourished. You look at the 7-touchdown game he had against the Oakland Raiders way back when, and then you obviously that Super Bowl moment, you can never forget that moment. He was one of the most down-to-earth individuals you ever wanted to meet. He understood this city as well as anybody. I can remember when he went to Jacksonville, and we went down. Obviously, I was on the road covering the team at that time. I went down to Jacksonville, and he granted me an interview after practice one day, and the first thing I said was, hey, how come you're not wearing your customary number 9? He said that number belonged to Philadelphia. He knew it was special to him in Philadelphia and nowhere else. And he said, I can't wear that number anywhere else except Philadelphia because of what it meant to me. But that's the kind of guy Nick Foles was. Not a standout type guy. Never wanted to put himself before the team. Never took individual credit for anything. He was a consummate team player. He was a perfect fit for what this city needed at that particular time.
Seth, how do you remember Nick Foles?
Obviously, you know, the Super Bowl win, he will be legendary in the city of Philadelphia for all eternity. I think, you know, if you take that moment away, you remember 27-2. I mean, that was phenomenal to watch. You know, he kind of always came across to me as the penultimate backup quarterback because he could come in and give you what you needed in spurts, in spots. But every time he was in a situation, unfortunately, to be a starting quarterback, it never really panned out for him. But nonetheless, he did what he needed to do in Philadelphia to make himself a legend. I mean, he's got a statue out next to Lincoln Financial Field.
Yeah.
He doesn't get much better than that.
How many backup quarterbacks you never seen?
All right.
Come on, man.
Now, you've referred to him, and rightfully so, backup quarterback. I'm going to tell you guys something. So, some years ago, I was asked to do something for NFL Films. I think at some point we've all been asked to do something for Eagles all-time top 10, right? Eagles all-time top 10 list. And at the end of it, they ask you, anybody should be on this list that shouldn't be, and I'm racking my brain. And they said, should Nick Foles, they asked me, should Nick Foles be on the top 10? My reaction right away was, you can't put him on the top 10. I mean, he's a great one. The Super Bowl, he's great. And then it was one of those things where you're driving home, and you're going, damn, he deserves to be on the top 10. Because you think about all the quarterbacks that tried to win the Super Bowl. He did it. He also had one of the greatest single seasons ever. And then he also happened to beat Tom Brady as well. Would you put him in the top 10, fellas? Oh boy!
Top 10 of all time.
Top 10 all time Philadelphia. Or I'll even put it like this: Super Bowl era.
No. I think you can put him unequivocally in the top 10 greatest moments in Philadelphia Eagles sports history. But in terms of just top 10 overall players to play for the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl era, absolutely not.
Absolutely not, he
says. When you look at the plethora of great players that have come through this organization, including this man sitting to my right, I want my money after the show, by the way. including my man sitting here to my – no, you can't put him in as one of the top 10 greatest players. Okay. You should know better than to ask that question. You're a native Philadelphia.
I was asked NFL Films asked me the question. What are you doing? Want me to spit in the face of NFL Films?
Well, better you than me.
Seth, what say you?
I can understand the fascination with that, Mark. I really can. Because, people used to always ask me, why are Philadelphia fans so damn honorary? I said, think about this. I said, the last time the Philadelphia Eagles won an NFL championship was 57 years ago, prior to 2017, okay? Every other team up and down the Eastern Seaboard had won at least one Super Bowl, some multiples. New England multiple. The stinking Jets won one back in 70-something. The Giants won multiple. The formerly known Redskins won multiple. The brand new franchise Baltimore Ravens won multiple.
Yep.
And then you can go west in the state, and that vaunted Pittsburgh Steelers team, I believe, is tied for the most Super Bowls.
Yeah.
Okay? And you want to know why the Philadelphia fans are so pissed off? Okay? So when you consider those things and you think about Nick Foles, I can understand a lot of people's fascinations with why they would think that he's a top 10 player. But the reality of it is, when you look at the big picture, he's just not a top 10 player. If you want to talk, like D. Gunn said, talk about top 10 moments, that Super Bowl would be etched in people's memory for all of eternity. And the guy at the helm, the guy who had, the greatest influence on it, the MVP, was Nick Foles.
So you're looking at that more along the moments than in the top 10.
Yeah.
Fair enough?
Yeah.
Fair enough. Want to talk about some breakout performances we could be seeing tonight? I have a guy, I'm going to say mine last because I want to see if you guys say this. But if you had to look at one player that you didn't see enough from in week 1 against the Packers that you need to see come out and have a great game tonight, who is that person? Gunnar, I'll start it with you. Who would you love to see have one of them breakout games tonight that we didn't get to see in week 1?
Dallas Goedert. There's no question about it. Dallas Goedert is a phenomenal tight end. If he got the looks that some of the top tight ends got in the National Football League, there's no question he'd be in the conversation as one of the top 5 tight ends in the National Football League. But he doesn't get mentioned because he's not in the spotlight enough. I think this is the perfect scenario where Dallas Goedert has a chance to shine in this game tonight. We don't know what type of front and what type of pressure the Atlanta Falcons front is going to try to put on Jalen Hurts tonight. But if they're coming after him, what do? Dump it off. Can't always dump it off to Saquon. Who's the next safety valve? Dump it off to that tight end. I think this is the perfect game for Dallas Goedert. We keep waiting for him to have one of these breakout games. It's been a while. I need to see you, Dallas. I need to see you break out, have at least 8 catches and about 95 yards and 2 touchdowns in this game tonight.
His name has come up a couple times between the two of you, and I agree with everything you're saying. He is one of those people that I consider Pro Bowl caliber.
Yes.
Just hasn't been on the field enough to really prove that he is that talented. But I think comes to blocking, comes to pass catching, he can do it all, certainly. Who's your breakout guy tonight?
I agree with D. Gunn 100%, but for the sake of not agreeing with him and giving us another option, I need to see Bryce Huff wake up tonight.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, y'all. I get it that it was just 1 week last week that he didn't show up. I think he got a pile jumping tackle was all that he got last week. But, for the expectations that go with him being on this roster, $53 million over 3 years, bringing him in to replace Hassan Reddick, I need for him to show up tonight. The quarterback is going to be where he is. He's going to be there as a statue, and you're going to have an opportunity to get to the quarterback and show this Philadelphia faithful why Howie Roseman made this move. I need for him to show up tonight.
I'm glad you brought up his name. I've been waiting for somebody to bring it up. 36-year-old Brandon Graham played 48% of the snaps last week. Your $51 million guy you brought in from the Jets played 44%. After the game, a few days later, your defensive coordinator was asked, what do you need to see from Bryce Huff for him to play more? And he looked there stoically and said, I need to see him separate himself. And I'm thinking, hold up here. This young man is 25 years old. You gave him $51 million because you did want to pay Hassan Reddick. And you sat there in front of the media and said, he needs to separate himself. You brought him in here because you thought he was an exceptional edge rusher. And now you're sitting there telling us after one game that he's mediocre?
Did Fangio bring him in here?
He didn't bring him. Thank you. Fangio didn't bring him in.
Whoever brought him in here, you paid that man $51 million.
That Howie Roseman. Fella, I'm not even kidding you. That's exactly where I was going.
Yeah.
I'm not – oftentimes you make a prediction and people think you're rooting for it. I'm making a prediction because I just want to see it. I don't want the Eagles. I don't want Howie Roseman. I don't want Vic Fangio to have a dud of an acquisition in this offseason in Bryce Huff. When you're talking about, as you pointed out, Brandon Graham playing more than him, and Brandon Graham was a guy playing around 40% of the snaps last year,
yes.
And Vic Fangio, in light of seeing Bryce Huff play, go over to Brandon Graham and say, hey, you know what? You're on no farewell tour. You're still playing football. Right. So go out there and do your thing. That's incredible to me. So I look at Bryce Huff going into a game tonight where, again, to use the cliche, you have that statue in Kirk Cousins. I look at him to be able to go out there and hopefully tee off tonight. If there is going to be a game where you could prove how much speed can kill, and that's how you have your success in the NFL, go show me tonight. This shouldn't be any different than what you did with the Jets versus this game tonight with this Eagles defense. Go out there and eat, Bryce Huff. I look at Nolan Smith in a much lesser degree. If your game is speed, eat tonight. This is the game to eat. And with those guys in the middle of the defensive line that we talked about in Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, open up those lanes on the outside for those guys to get that pressure as well.
If Bryce Huff has a sack,
I'm 100%.
If Bryce Huff has a sack, we should do a whole segment on Bryce Huff. If he has for the post-game show, we should do a whole segment on Bryce Huff.
I 1,000% agree with you. Who'd you say again, Gunner?
Man. Huh?
Who'd you say? Oh, Dallas Goedert?
Yeah.
Anyway, all right, let's get to our predictions when it comes
what the
to this game. Will it be Kirk Cousins going down to 3-11? It would be on Monday Night Football. Seth, you want to take the first one here?
Sure.
What's your prediction on tonight's matchup?
I made a prediction earlier this week on my TV show, 32-20, the Eagles win. But I think I'm going to stay with it even without A.J. Brown in the mix, because I do certainly believe that this is an opportunity for Jalen Hurts to realize that he's got more weapons on this field than just wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2. I think he knows that, but I think sometimes with A.J. on the field, he kind of feels compelled to make sure that he gets him his targets. And I think that there's enough there. I think there's been enough chatter about the defense that they'll be motivated to come out and play at a higher level than they played last week. And listen, this is the home opener on Monday Night Football at Lincoln Financial Field. If you can't get up to stump a mud hole in a team that you should beat, then you got a problem. You got a real problem, D-Gun.
All right, so 32-20.
32-20.
32-20. Gunner?
The Birds win. And I ain't talking about them red birds, them red and black birds.
Them dirty birds, right.
Over the last close to 2 seasons, this Philadelphia Eagles team plays too many close games. I believe I saw a stat that said in their last 19 games, they've only won 2 games by 10 or more points. I think Nick Foles being honored, it's their legitimate season opener at home tonight. They're going to want to put on a show. But the loss of A.J. Brown, to me, changes the complexion of the game somewhat. Not much, because Howie Roseman built this team to be explosive, and even without A.J., they can still be explosive. But I think the Atlanta Falcons, who got embarrassed by Pittsburgh last week in their home opener, are going to come in here, and they don't want to get embarrassed on Monday night. I'm looking more at like a 28-24 type game.
28-24?
Yeah, they're close. 28-24.
Why do you hate the Eagles, D-Gun?
I don't hate them. I got them winning. What else you want?
I got him at 27-17. A lot of the same reasons. I'd love to say this is going to be a blowout win for the Eagles. But again, chip on their shoulder with the Falcons. They're in prime time. Yeah. Don't want to get embarrassed. You don't have A.J. Brown. That's got to count for something. For me, it counts for a touchdown. I look at this game right now as 27-10. The Eagles win. The Eagles cover, by the way. And the Eagles can get the victory tonight. You can get the victory as well. When you talk about the special odds boost from Parx Casino, betPARX on the Birds, number 26. Saquon Barkley to rush for over 100 yards. The odd boosted up to plus 150. So make sure you take advantage of all they have to offer at betPARX.com. Must be 21 in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Michigan, Maryland, or Ohio. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. 3 for 3, we got the Eagles winning this game tonight in the Monday Night Football kickoff and the retirement of Nick Foles. Jalen Hurts going out there leading the team in their true home opener at Lincoln Financial Field. Thank you for watching. Once again, make sure you guys hit like and subscribe and hit that notification button as well on the Seth Joyner Show YouTube channel. Thank you for watching on that. Thank you for watching on 6ABC. We'll be back with you guys for the post-game show right here at Parx Casino in Ben Salem, brought to you by the great people of Lehocky after the game. See you then.
Go Birds.